Alright, welcome to my video. My name is Eckogen. We're going to be going over the first boss in the Temple of Eluvium, so the Twin Asuras. The setup for this fight is like the third boss in Skybreak Spire, as there is a Frost and a Flame Asura. So the raid team is going to be split in half with an instant kill zone separating us. So before I explain the mechanics, there are roles that are required. You need a range tank for Flame Asura, a melee tank for Frost Asura, 2 to 6 healers per side, and 1 to 2 keepers per side. The healer role is a mechanical role, it's not a class role. So the more healers you have, the easier it will be for your tank to survive. However, you will lose out on damage when it comes to the self-damage mechanics. So myself and Kamisia, he's number 4, we're the healers, so we block orbs of the opposite color. So since we start on the flame side, we're going to block blue orbs for the first phase. Our tank and keeper are going to block the same colored orbs, so they'll be blocking red. Now, when blocking orbs on the flame side, it's important that the healers block the orbs roughly 5 to 8 meters away from the boss. But you gotta be mindful of the positioning of the keeper and range tank, as you do not want to share with them. So on the Flaming Asura side, just keep in mind that the range tank needs to build threat against the boss. So when you start the fight, cool down on the DPS and let the range tank be sure that he has the threat before you engage the boss. And of course, as you're range tanking this boss for the Flaming Asura, it must always be kept at range at all times. Because if he gets too close, or if he loses the threat and it targets someone that's really close by, that's like, too close to the boss, he will drop a massive AoE underneath him that's going to be persistent, and that's pretty much game over. Alright, so this message will appear. So this is the start of the Orb Phase. So throughout the fight, red and blue orbs are going to spawn randomly in predetermined spawn points and move towards the Asura on that side. So if either Asura absorbs 3 colors, it will enrage, and the orbs have to be blocked. So blocking an orb will apply 2 chill or heat stacks depending on the color that you blocked. So if you block a blue orb, you'll get chill stacks. If you block a red orb, you'll get heat stacks. The stacks can be shared. So if you block with somebody nearby, you will each get 1 stack. If you solo block, you get 2 stacks. There is a small delay for the stacks to apply, so you could block an orb and then SS to somebody else to share the stack. So after blocking an orb, the Asura on your side will fire a projectile at you. Alright, so each stack of the chill or heat buff deals about 6,000 damage to you every 2 seconds. So once you get 3 stacks of the chill or heat buff, they become a frost or a flame buff. So 3 stacks of chill becomes frost, 3 stacks of heat becomes flame. Once you have this buff, you'll no longer receive damage over time. And for the duration of your heat or chill status, you can change the color of it, so to say, by blocking the opposite color orb. So for example, if you have the chill debuff, which you got from blocking the blue orb, if you wanted for some reason to change to heat, you would have to block a red orb, and that would change that to heat. Now, you cannot do that if you have the frost or flame buff, as doing that will kill you. So I'll go over the order of the orb blocking that we did. Your order will probably vary depending on the number of keepers and healers that you have. So for the first orb here, Kamisia solo block that for the blue orb. All right, blue orb 2, so I'll be solo blocking that. Now, take note of my positioning. So Examia, number one there with that yellow triangle over his head, see the distance that I have positioned myself. So I'm about 5 meters away from the boss. He's probably another 5 meters away from me as well. So you have to keep in mind of where you are when you're blocking these orbs because you do not want to accidentally share it with the tanks or the keepers or the other party members if you're not doing that. So if I was to block any closer to Examia, it would probably share the blue with him and then it would kill him. So keep in mind of what you're doing and where you're blocking it. So for blue orb 3, Kamisi is going to solo block that. Blue orb 4, I'm going to solo block that. Blue orb 5, Kamisi is going to solo block that. So notice our positioning as well. Pretty much everyone is all close to the boss besides the range tank and the keeper and the person going to block the orb because you don't want any accidental sharing of the stacks. So blue orb 6, I'll be solo blocking that as well. Blue orb 7, so there's going to be a pair that are blocking it together so that way they share a stack. Essentially, you want the range tank, keeper, and healers to have the 3 stacks, and then everyone else that doesn't have a role that's just a DPS should have 1 stack ideally. And then blue orb number 8, so it's going to be a different pair that's now sharing. Blue orb 9, so that's going to be another pair that is now sharing it too, so they each get a stack. Blue orb number 10, I'm going to be blocking that and sharing it with somebody else. Because this person does not have a stack yet, that's why I'm sharing it with them. And if you look too, you can see that my Frost buff is now at 56 seconds. So these buffs don't last forever, and as the healer, you pretty much need to keep it refreshed all the time. Same for the keeper and the tank. So because it got shared, my stack is now refreshed. So for blue orb 11, Kamisi is going to solo block that. Now, if one of our DPS roles for some reason did not get a stack, they could share with him. So same here, blue orb 12. Since everyone else has their stacks, I'm just going to solo block it. That way it refreshes my buff. Alright, so there's blue orb 13 that was just about to come to the boss, but because the boss ended the phase, the orb is now gone. So the boss usually ends the phase on the 12th or 13th orb, it just depends. So after about a minute and a half, he's going to absorb all the chill and heat stacks. And so the same color stacks will heal him for 2%, and the opposite color will damage him for 2%. So if you do not have any chill or heat stacks when this happens, you will die. And so it's vital that the tank, keepers, and healers have greater than 45 seconds left on their buff before this point. And after absorbing these stacks, Asura is going to spawn 6 flowers, and he's going to fire projectiles at the tank. So these flowers are going to continuously heal him, and they can be removed by stepping on them with the same color, either frost or flame buff. So at this point of the mechanic, the range tank and the keeper are pretty much responsible for doing this. They're going to step on each of these flowers and convert them into an orb. So the healers need to immediately pick up their orb, and then go to where the tank is. And this is also where the keeper will grab an orb as well, and then use the protection buff to cross the other side of the room, because that gives them immunity. So when you do that, they have to pick up the orb on the other side of the room that they went to, and then serve as a healing role. So about 30 seconds after, Asura will try to absorb the flowers, and you'll see it shortly here. So if there are any flowers that are still left, he will enrage. And then also at this point, this is where you need your Soul Fighter. So the Soul Fighter is going to get close to the tank and then give him that HP buff. Now, anyone with no Orb buff or with the same colored Frost or Flame buff will be rooted. So everyone who does not have the same buff as the boss, like same color as the boss, are going to get rooted here. So those with the opposite color buff will take damage over time. So for blue, I should take damage by the mechanics, but because I have an orb, it makes me immune to the damage. Now carrying this orb will give me abilities. So the abilities are similar to the horns in Beluga Lagoon. So LMB will give you an instant heal. 1 will give you a big heal. However, using 1, it does have a 3-second cast time, so keep note of that. 2 will give you a protection buff, which allows you to cross the middle, but it uses up the orb in the same time. So you only use 2 if you're the keeper and you're crossing. So that's the only time you would use 2. If you're a healer, you can ignore the 2 function completely. So if you've done this correctly, pretty much everyone will be rooted besides the orb holders. And the heals for this are roughly 2 by 8. So be sure to get close to the tank. That way you know for sure the tank is actually getting healed. The Asuras will phantom grip the tanks and do 5 big hits on them. The tanks will constantly suffer about 6.5k damage ticks, and each hit from the 5-hit combo that the boss does is going to do a lot of damage. The damage done at this point here is true damage. So when I say true damage, what I mean by that is that having defense does not matter in this case. So thus, tanks need to maximize as much health as possible, either through soul shields or soups or whatever, as long as they have a lot of health. This is why it's important to have soul fighters in the party to give that health boost, because you're going to need that to survive the mechanics. So we're going to go on to the part on how to heal. So this is kind of how we did it. How you might do it might be a little different. Each healer needs to be given an order of when to use their big heals and their instant heals. And like I said before, it's variable depending on the number of healers you have and the number of keepers you have. So for healer 1, this is how we did it. So we'll cast a big heal, so it lands right after hit number 1, and then you pretty much instant heal for each hit afterwards. Healer 2 will instant heal for hit 1, and then cast a big heal after hit 2, and then instant heal for the rest of the hits. Healer 3 instant heals for hits 1 and 2, and then cast a big heal after hit 3, and then instant heals for the rest. So essentially you want the big heals to top off the tank after each hit, because the big hits do a lot of damage. So of course, if you don't use any big heals at all, the instant heals are not enough to pretty much replenish the health that the tank has lost, and the tank's going to die, especially in phase 2, because the bosses do a lot more damage in phase 2. So that's why, bottom line, you pretty much want a healer to do a big heal after each hit, and then instant heal for the rest of that. So that pretty much just has to be covered in order to keep the tanks alive. Now, if both tanks survive, the Asuras will pretty much swap places and bring the tanks with them via Phantom Grip. The tanks will also gain a 30% HP buff for the rest of the fight, and so this 30% increase is very vital, and you need this for the second time that the boss does this mechanic again, because even though the boss is swapped, it's pretty much a repeat of the mechanics. Pretty much everything is exactly the same except for some minor differences. So pretty much, as you know, the tanks change sides. So the on the other side was the Frost with the Frost tank and their keeper, and then on my side was the range tank and our keeper. So that's switched sides now. So now we have the melee tank and the keeper that goes with him. So as far as the differences go, myself and Kimesia, if you guys remember that we're the healers, and for the flame boss, we were blocking the blue orbs. Now we're blocking red orbs because healers block the opposite color of the orbs that you're currently for the boss that you're currently with. So since we have the frost, we're blocking red, and then the tank and the keeper are going to block the blue orbs. And now, whenever you're blocking the red orbs on the frost side as the healer role, it's very important that you do this at max range so it does not share with the keeper or the tank because the tank is right at the boss. So if you were to wait until that red orb got to pretty much right up at the boss and then you blocked it, there's a good chance that stack's going to share with the tank and you're going to kill the tank. So same thing, the mechanics are going to repeat. The orb phase is going to begin once again. Only difference now is that the healers, so myself and Kimesia, now we're going to block the red orbs instead of the blue orbs. And the order still remains the same, unless you're going to add more healers or do something else. As far as that goes, the order for orb blocking will remain the same. So Kimesia is going to block red orb 1 solo. And notice how I'm constantly scanning the room for the red orbs. So I'm going to block red orb blue solo. And notice that I'm blocking as far away from the boss as I can. Kimesia is going to block red orb 3 solo. But it kind of got missed, so that's okay. As long as he doesn't absorb 3 orbs, he will not enrage. And then I'll block 4 solo. And see, the keeper was kind of close to me there, so that's why I kind of moved to the left a bit, just to make sure that I don't accidentally share with him. Alright, so now he's going to solo block Orb 5. Now for Orb 6, normally I block that, but because we're adding a healer on the second phase, that's why you see Master 5-0 going to block that 6 orb solo. So now for red orb 7, there's going to be a pair that are going to block that together and share. Red orb 8, so a different pair is going to share and block and share that. Red orb 9, another pair are going to block and share that. All right, so for 10, so for this boss here, there's a cone, like field, I guess in front of him where the tank is taking him, that you pretty much have to watch out for. So because of where this orb is coming from, if I was to just stay in line with that orb and then try to block it, if it's a bad timing, the boss might do a swipe attack and it'll knock me down or over, and then I won't be able to block the orb. So that's why it's important to kind of stick to the side here and then make sure you block it just in time. So even that, as you can see, I still got hit by the knockdown, and then I just had to quickly adjust myself and block it in time before the orb got too close to the tank there. Once the orb gets like, if it's too late to block the orb, I would say don't block it because they'll probably kill the tank. but we were pretty much borderline on blocking that orb there. Alright, so red orb 11. So that was solo blocked. Red orb 12. I blocked that one. That way it refreshes my stack. And then Kamisi also shared with me too, so that way it refreshes his stack as well. Since we have three healers for this time, because it'll be myself, Kamisia, and 5-0 plus the keeper as well. So that's why we had to make sure all three of us had 3 stacks, so that way it would transform into a flame buff. And then we also had to make sure that our stacks were also relatively refreshed, so that way for when the mechanic ends, you know, the timer, we still have it. Because if we don't have it by that time, we're gonna die. So he's gonna absorb all the stacks once again. So pretty much everyone with 1 or 2 stacks, that's gonna damage him. And so now he's going to spawn 6 flowers. So this is where the tank and the keeper will step on these flowers here and convert them into orbs. So healers need to pick up the orbs, and then they need to get close to the tank and start healing the tank. And then it'll be the same healing order unless you add more healers. It's the same thing here. You pretty much have to make sure that there's a big heal covering after every major hit, and then instant heal after that for whenever you're done with your big heals. So we added an extra healer just because on this second phase here, the Asuras do 50% more damage. So we added an extra healer just for that safety net. So if everyone stays alive, same thing. The Asuras just swap. Everything just switches. So now we have the range tank and the keeper that goes with the range tank back on our side again. And you just do the same thing. So this just repeats and repeats until you kill the boss. However, one thing to note here is that once the boss gets close to that 5-hit attack, that's pretty much around the enrage time. So you have to kill him before that. So pretty much you need to kill him on phase 3, like early phase 3. So the mechanics here are just exactly the same as you did for the Flame one in the original. So now we're back to blocking the blue orbs, the range tank, and the keeper are going to block the red orbs. So same order as always. Just remember that for the flame, you need to block these orbs about 5 to 8 meters away from the boss. But remember where the range tank and the keeper are, because you don't want to block too close to them and share the orb with them, because that will kill them. And remember that everyone else needs to stay close to the boss, so that way they don't accidentally get the orbs when people are blocking them. And any of the orbs that the bosses take, the stacks do not reset. And then pretty much both of them need to be taken down to 1% for them to die. So there we go. That is how you do the first boss in Temple of Eluvium. I will include the full description of the mechanics in the video description below, just because that was a lot to talk about. Um, Essentially, the mechanics are really easy to do, but it's also very easy to mess up. This raid is very unforgiving. If you mess up something, it's most likely going to be a wipe. So, like I said, the mechanics will be in the video description below. If you still have questions, please ask. I'll try to do my best to answer them and help you out. Thanks for watching. Hope that helped.